Welcome to Reels on the Rocks, the show where your hosts Whiskey and Sweet Tea discuss film from the unpretentious perspective. What happens when a bad director makes a good movie? We're finding out with Martin Scorsese's Hugo. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and as always, please be advised that spoilers are ahead. Welcome back, listeners. We're back, rocking around the clock. I don't know. I can't do these. Whiskey's the one that comes up with these. It's just awkward when I do them. So I'll just say hello, listeners. Welcome back.
Welcome. Have you guys ever wondered where dreams are made? No.
See, that would have been better. That would have been epic.
Would have been something for sure. Welcome back, though. It's been a time we're like in the middle of summer, cranking away at these episodes for our second episode of Good Films by Bad Directors, and I'm sure some of you are probably fuming seeing what film is being featured.
And you're probably saying, why? And
fans of the show are not surprised.
And my response is, you know why.
Because it's this show.
It's this show, exactly.
Because T is the Joker to Scorsese's Batman.
Exactly. My mom was giving me so much shade for this pick. And I'm just like, you know what? Do you want your own show? Do your own show.
It's been like a month, but like when I was having dinner with my friend who's in the industry, like I was explaining some of our upcoming programming and he like misunderstood. I was like having to tell him like, no, like it's like a whole thing with our show. It's like an inside joke because he's like, oh, but this is like a really good movie. I'm like, yeah, I know. That's the whole point. Whatever. Anyway, but so for the mini topic, movie news is still kind of slow, which is actually kind of refreshing. There's not a lot of scandals or anything going on. It's all just like box office news. Every time I'm looking at stuff, it's like, Jurassic World made a bunch of money, or this last weekend, Superman made a bunch of money. So,
today is the 13,000th day of Taylor Swift. Like somebody
of her being alive.
Yeah. The Taylor Nation account put that out. And I'm like, oh my God, who counted that? I'm here for it as a fan, but I'm just like, who calculated that? That's like something I would figure out like after the fact,
It's also not really movie news, but super good for her since her lucky number's 13, according to you.
Exactly. But you have a mini topic for us today, and you had me do some homework, which I have brought with me today.
So yeah, movie news is slow, so I thought I'd do something more fun, activity related, more based on our opinions, which is always fun and kind of the point of the show. The whole point of these last two episodes was good films by bad directors, and what could be worse than directors that embody the 7 deadly sins. So what I did and what I asked T to do was to come up with your pick for a director that embodies each one of the 7 deadly sins. I was just working off of IMDb has like a list of the 20 worst directors, which if you look at the list, it's really funny because they've got some people like George Lucas and M. Night Shyamalan like listed, which is like, it's funny because you know why they're on the list, but then at the same time, it's like, well, technically their films have done well, so what are you talking about?
We can't forget Howard the Duck.
No, although he didn't direct that, in fact, the director of that movie was also on the list. So that's the list I was working off of, just because it gave me some people to look at, because there's a lot of, you could find some obscure, movie from that was dumped on Amazon or something by Shark Exorcist.
Oh my God.
The name of the director of Shark Exorcist? No. So I worked off this list and not necessarily needing to be researched. We're sort of going off of vibes here, but T's got his own list, and we're just going to go from sin to sin. So starting off with Pride. Who do you have down as the most prideful director?
Okay, so this is funny. I had about 6 different directors in the spot, and they all got moved around. And I was actually going to come in here and be like, I don't have somebody for Pride. And then I did some more research, and I found someone who I think fits. If you let me explain my reasoning. So for Pride, I put Alfred Hitchcock, and the reason why is he had a habit of burying female actresses who resisted his advances, most notably being Tippi Hedren. Like in that case, they hurt his pride. So that's why I put him down as like the bad kind of pride, you know, not like the good kind where, you know, you're proud of yourself, you know, it's like, anyway, but you get what I'm trying to say. So I put him down for that one.
No, I get that. Well, it's funny, like, he's not on the list I was working off of, but it's funny, when I was doing Gluttony, I was thinking it could have been him. Could have been Orson Welles. That would have been funny, but that's more like literal gluttony. I've got my own pick for that. For me, I picked one of the directors that was funny that it was on the IMDb list. I went with Quentin Tarantino.
Okay.
You know, I in the sense that he's kind of annoying, I think it's good that he like is proud of his movies, but he's also like an unquestionable nerd. Like, it's more like, I guess Pride is sort of, it has nothing to do with necessarily like he has nothing to be proud of. It's like his weird movie knowledge. It's probably like less even about his like body of work and more just that like he's a walking Wikipedia article.
Very much a person. He's like very much the embodiment of actually.
He is a wealth of knowledge, but yeah, like he's kind of annoying in that sense, and yeah, he's like the sort of person who likes to argue with people too, which sometimes is very funny. It never, like, everyone uses that clip of him on some news channel arguing with that lady about violence in his films, and you know, that's always a fun one to watch because that lady in particular was just
asking a question.
Unless it's, well, it's like also like, unless it's the Care Bears movie, it's like she's going to be offended by everything.
Right.
So, you know, kind of a weird pick, but mainly I just sort of thought it was funny that Quentin Tarantino was on the list of IMDb's 20 worst directors. And again, I think this is like picked by people.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like the site or whatever, but it was just funny that he was on the list. Probably the funniest one, because every other like big director, and I have a few of the other big directors on my list, but he was the one where I was genuinely like, I mean, why though? Like, his films are all pretty good, pretty critically acclaimed. You can say what you want about him.
At worst, they're just okay. You know, none of them I would classify as bad. I just thought that was, but, you know.
Yeah. As I said, I thought it was weird that he was on the list, but I just thought it'd be funny to include him. And I definitely think, like, out of any of the like, maybe Lust with him putting his foot fetish stuff, but Pride just sort of fit with that. What about Greed?
Okay, I put 2 down for this, and there's a reason why I put 2. So for Greed, I was trying to think of what would make them like greedy and stuff, and I'm like, and you always hear about those directors who are willing to do anything to get the perfect shot, even at the expense of their actors. So I consider that greedy. So the 2 that I put down is Francis Ford Coppola, for the way that he treated his cast on Apocalypse Now, literally paying some of them with cocaine and to keep them up into a heightened state, allegedly, and for keeping another one drunk the entire time. So that's why he's on. The other one is John Landis. Now, John Landis is the director who was on set for the sequence of the Twilight Zone movie when those people were decapitated. And I read some stuff about him in court. Allegedly, he was super smug about it, was basically told that stuff was kind of dangerous ahead of time. I mean, he was acquitted for all this. I want to put that up front. But the fact that his vision for what he wanted got people killed and he's still working, that's always bugged me. But that's why I put those 2 down for greed, because I'm like, nothing's more greedy than putting your vision above the human condition. So
that's a really good pick. And is he still working? I thought, like, after the 90s, he was pretty much just, like, gone. I know his son had a moment where he was, like, a screenwriter, but then he kind of blew that by being a creepy pervert.
Oh, not shocking. No, but, like, I mean, I went and followed, like, it didn't, but what, he might be done now, but I was reading, his career didn't die out because of this. He got some you worked on some high profile projects and stuff after this. So it definitely did not kill it, is what I'm saying.
You can feel at ease, T, that his career went out the slow, embarrassing death. I think the last film he worked on was The Stupids. So
oh my god.
So that's where it went, you know. It was a slow burn karma for him. For me, I went with Michael Bay for this one, and I don't even think this is like a controversial.
That's
like
not
just
a hot
the
take.
overindulgence in the explosions, the like. He's one of those. He's a populist filmmaker. Like it's all about like the dumbest story possible to appeal to the widest demographic.
Insert
He's
Armageddon.
all about that. Yeah, he's all about those Benjamins, baby. He's all about that paycheck, and it works out for him because he knows what to get butts in seats. And then he kind of went off and just started doing Transformers movies exclusively for a decade, and now I don't know what he's up to. But yeah, I feel like greed applies to him, not even necessarily in a derogatory way, but I just think he embodies that sin as a person.
Oh my god. I can totally see it, Max. That's
Oh.
definitely not a hot take.
Okay, I got a good one for the next one, but I'm curious, who do you have for Wrath?
Okay, hold on. Popping down my list because I was going, and I don't know if this is the Catholic order or not. Okay, so for Wrath,
I got you. I just pulled up the list and went in the order that was, you know. So anyway, yeah, Wrath is what I've got next.
Wrath is so obvious. James Cameron. I mean, come on. It's just like known for being super bossy and like mean to people. Like Kate Winslet refuses to ever work with him again. And supposedly he has like tantrums and screams at people. He's like if what's that guy's name? Who was that in the first Gladiator?
Oh, you mean like the main character,
Yeah.
like Russell Crowe?
Thank you. He's
Okay.
like if Russell Crowe was a director. So, yeah, so that's what I put down for Wrath. I'm like, this is too easy for Wrath.
He does have a temper. That is known. It is interesting. Some people still work with him knowing that. Like, I know Sigourney Weaver's like, oh, he's a certain way on set, but then once the production's over, he calms down, which I can understand. It's sort of like, I don't know. It's interesting.
I was reading, and there was some interview Sigourney Weaver gave, and when they asked her to talk about working with him, I forget what she said, but it was such a backhanded way of saying he was an awful person to work with. But I'm not going to be unprofessional and say that.
I mean, she keeps working with him.
That's true.
So he must not be that bad.
Or the money's good.
Also, she also kind of defended him on the set of Alien because the British team didn't want to work with him because they were like, it's a British film. Ridley Scott's a British director. They shouldn't bring in an American for this. So like they were kind of not willing to work with him, and she was like defending him. And so I don't know. Maybe there's some camaraderie with that. My pick, for anyone who's been like banging their head on their table, being like, "Why are they talking about like big directors? Isn't this supposed to be about bad directors?" I've got the first probably like generally accepted bad director, Uwe Boll.
Okay, you're gonna have to fill me in.
You don't know who Uwe Boll is?
You literally just said not one of the big directors.
No, he's okay. So maybe this is before your time.
Probably.
T and I, there's a bit of an age gap, but not that big of an age gap. So in the 90s and 2000s, there was a wave of bad video game movies. And the one leading the charge was a German director named Uwe Boll. And I'm probably mispronouncing his name, but he did like House of the Dead, not Perfect Dark, Alone in the Dark. He did he did Postal. Basically, he just did these really bad video game remakes that used to piss off
like video game fans.
teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and so the thing is, his films are bad. Like, I could show you, I remember watching when I was in high school, like, a super compilation of all the, like, funny moments in Postal, and it was just, it was in such poor taste. It made me laugh, but not for, like, good reasons. Not like, oh, this is good comedy. This is like, wow, this is so shockingly offensive that I can't believe it's in a movie. Like, I think that movie opens with, like, a 9/11 joke.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, so like besides like video game fans, they weren't good movies, so film critics always just hated his movies, and he got awful, like the worst scores ever. So he got famous for challenging film critics to boxing matches.
What?
He's like, if my film's so bad, yeah. So I'm surprised you didn't know about this. This wasn't that far. He's like,
dude, he's doing like YouTuber level shenanigans every time they had a beef. You want to box, and then we got the whole flood of bad boxers.
It was basically like, oh, like you're just sitting at a keyboard, like you wouldn't say that to my face. And some film critics took him up on it, and he, beat them up because he's like a muscly, he is a fit guy. He's, I guess he likes boxing in his free time. But yeah, he did box some film critics. God. And last I heard of him, pretty much like COVID, I think, killed his career. But he was kind of like I'm not fired, I quit kind of mentality.
Oh, okay.
I'll look it up. This might be worth talking about in a future episode. But he had a big explosive tantrum, like it was either right before COVID or because of COVID. But yeah, he was just like, oh, it's impossible to make movies anymore, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, okay.
I'm retired. But yeah, no, literally beating up people because they don't like your movies, easy wrath. Like he was on the list, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that I haven't heard that name in an age.
And just the epitome of classy behavior.
No, again, I will send you some stuff about his films after we're done recording, because you will be... It's peak 2000s. Like, you will be shocked that any of this was made. You'll be shocked that this is a real person. Like, it's a whole thing. All right, so what about Envy?
Okay, so for Envy, this person was actually at one point in the Pride spot. So for Envy, I put Ridley Scott. And the reason why I moved him down from Pride is because of his iconic line that the reason the last duel failed is because of millennials and their phones. And I'm like, this dude is envious of younger up-and-coming directors. He's envious of people who are changing the game. He's envious of youth itself. And I really think that comes out when he has his little tantrums online. He's produced in the last few years very lackluster movies, and is definitely one of those people who wishes, like you've always said, he was back in his trying to recapture his Gladiator 1 heydays. So for that reason, and his apparent envy of youth and our ability to, move on, I put Ridley Scott down for Envy.
You're picking some good ones. I went with another joke director. So you haven't heard of Uwe Boll. Have you heard of Birdemic Shock and Terror Tea? Have you heard of that cinematic masterpiece?
I think I have, mostly because of that last name. Please tell me that's a stage name.
Birdemic?
No.
So that's not the name. So the director is James Nguyen.
Okay.
It's it's common last name.
I think it's pronounced Nguyen.
Nguyen?
Yeah, it's an Nguyen.
Nguyen.
Yeah, Nguyen.
Okay, cool. So James Nguyen. So once again, in the 2000s, when it was very popular to like joke on really stupid straight-to-video movies made by hack directors, there was a The Birds clone made, but it's really bad, poorly written, poorly shot. There's like clip art CGI birds attacking people, they fend them away.
I think I've seen clips of this online where it's like just people just standing there and they're just like knifing at the sky.
No, they're using coat hangers.
Or coat hanger or something. They're doing something, but basically, there's just these clip art birds just like sitting there. They're not even moving. I mean, they're moving, but they're not like flying. They're like in place. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think I've seen
it's
this.
Just like a filter on. Okay, so yes, that is Birdemic. And it is very clearly a rip-off of The Birds, but and it's also like, I think he tried to make it like global warming was the cause or something at the end. But this guy, he's made a couple of movies. I think Birdemic, he did do Birdemic 2.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I think it's just this. And then he, if I remember correctly, he did like a gay,
a gay Birdemic.
No. It was like a romantic thriller or something. But again, it was awful.
Oh my god.
And kind of it's yeah. The reason I'm putting him for envy is like you say that you envy or you copy the things that like you envy the most, and he's clearly trying to rip off Alfred Hitchcock. And
Yeah.
even with like some of his other movies, like I remember there's like a lot of a Hitchcock kind of vibe. The guy's from San Francisco,
Oh
which
my God.
was a setting for a lot. So I feel like
how many of his movies had pointless scenes of people driving around for like hours?
see, I'd need to watch more of his movies to know for sure, but I know that's like 50% of Birdemic, so there you go.
Oh my god, it's totally referencing Vertigo.
Exactly. So I'm putting him as envy because he clearly wishes he was Alfred Hitchcock, but he isn't. So he's just making like poor attempts at imitating him. You know, all the more power to him. He doesn't sound like a bad guy or anything, but my goodness, he was famous for his bad movies back in like 2007. And I wonder what he's up to these days.
Right.
But we have moved on to Lust.
Okay, so hold on. I gotta pull up my notes for this one. Okay.
Oh boy.
All right, so for Lust, I picked Luc Besson.
Oh boy.
There was a few people in contention for this, you know, Woody Allen, Roman Polanski, but I went ahead with this guy. As much as I enjoy The Fifth Element, just a couple notes about him. His second wife was an actress that he started dating when he was 32, and she was 15 after having known her for 3 years. They married in late 1992 when she was 16 and pregnant with their daughter. And then he claims that went on to inspire the relationship in his movie Leon, which is between an adult man and a 12-year-old girl. Then he had another one who he had, if I remember, he had an affair with her allegedly during The Fifth Element. And she was 19. So he married her later, and then they divorced later, and he's been married 4 times, and 2 of his marriages have very disturbing age gaps. Which has me frankly very concerned. But
yeah, he's known for that. It's funny because Leon, the Professional, is like a good movie. I also will give, because I'd heard about it for years. It might have been during COVID, but it was on Netflix or something, and I finally got a chance to watch it. I will highlight that in the film, Leon has no romantic feelings for the little girl. She's crushing on him, so at least Luc Besson had enough like self-awareness to know that would not be okay.
I mean,
so
it's kind of disturbing though. I mean, I knew that it was a platonic relationship, so at least it's not in film, but it's disturbing though he based it off of it. And they started dating when this girl was 15 and he met her when she was 12. And something about that made him say, I want to hit that. So, long story short, or TLDR, someone needs to look at this man's hard drives. Allegedly.
It's like the opposite of that shoot, what's his name? It's not let's see, something Anderson. The guy who directed all the Resident Evil movies is apparently married to the lead actress. Mm-hmm. And so he directs all the movies. That's kind of sweet. It's like the opposite of that.
Right? I just like, this guy is a mess and a creep, and I don't know why more people have. Oh, and then on top of that, he has sexual assault allegations and rape allegations. So lots more to do with that. But yeah, definitely the bad kind of Lust. So that is my pick for Lust.
Yeah, the thing with Lust, it's funny. If I had done Quentin Tarantino and his foot fetish stuff,
oh my god,
it wouldn't have been as bad. Because like the sad truth is with the Lust category. Same with my pick, but there's just a disturbing amount of directors with like sexual allegations. You mentioned Woody Allen and
Roman Polanski.
Yeah, it's like, ugh, like it gets gross. And my guy's pretty gross. Maybe not criminal gross necessarily, although there are accusations against him of sexual harassment. But it's Brett Ratner. Yeah. Part of the reason I picked him was that he kind of created this like Playboy persona, like, oh yeah, I'm the director that like bangs supermodels.
Oh, classy.
You know, right? So that's why I picked him, because he kind of made that, like, whether from what it sounds like, he made he made passes at a lot of models and actresses, but I guess it was not reciprocated, or else they wouldn't be accusing him of sexual harassment. But that was like his whole thing, like, oh yeah, I'm such a playboy, I get around, I have sex with all these people. So because he made it like a personality trait,
What's ironic is
he's who I was thinking of.
There's a picture of him. I should look this up to read about the allegations of him attending and it looks like he was a speaker for the 8th annual GLSN Respect Awards. So come on, my GLSN peeps, we can do better. I mean, like, to be fair, they probably didn't know then, but it's just like that guest speaker did not age well.
And that was Brett Ratner?
Yes.
For Respect. Yeah, sure, okay. Like, also, what a weird... He's kind of one of those rent-a-directors. The only, like, movies I can say he did that I enjoyed were he did, like, the Rush Hour movies. But otherwise, it's like he was the guy that you'd hire to do movies you couldn't find anyone else to do. Like, he did X-Men 3. He did Red Dragon. And, it's like, oh, man, who's going to make these sequels that we're farting out? Let's call Brett Ratner, So and that's kind of mean. I like Red Dragon, but still, it's like, I don't know. He's one of those directors you don't really think about unless he's being accused of something.
Let me see. I want to see what he was speaking there about. Let's see. According to this, the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network said that they were honoring Jeffrey Katzenberg, Matt Bomer, and his partner, Simon Halls. But why was he there?
I was gonna say, I didn't know, like, he's not gay or any. Same thing with Katzenberg. Katzenberg has, like, his own host of issues, so it's weird that he was, like, asked to be there too.
Let's see. Film director Brett Ratner will also recognize filmmakers Adam Fitzgerald and Blake Drummond on stage at the Respect Awards for their winning submission to create a public service announcement for GLSN something.
Okay, so they made a public service announcement for them, so that was part. Okay.
It says the contest was spearheaded by Brett Ratner and hosted by Talent House. In addition to Brett Ratner, Tom Ford and Evan Bernard served as guest judges for the contest. So, I mean, as discussed,
at least they did something.
As gross as he was at least a gross ally.
Well, yeah, like, as I said, it's, and sexual harassment is not the same as sexual assault. So, he's not that bad on the, but he's not good.
Yeah, definitely not good.
It's got, like, yes, he's not Roman Polanski, but that does not mean that, like, what he did was acceptable. So, but anyway, the reason he came up for me, like I said, he made that, like, his persona when he would go on talk shows and stuff. He's like, oh yeah, I'm the cool, hot director who bangs Playboy models, so... That's why I picked him.
Love that
for
him.
We're on to Gluttony.
Okay, Gluttony might seem obvious, but I actually picked them because of a different reason. So for Gluttony, I picked Orson Welles. Not because of his weight, but because the only thing I can think of now when I see him is his drunk champagne commercials.
Oh my God.
And so I'm just like, regardless of the weight and the size, I mean, let's just talk about you are on a commercial and you're only supposed to take probably a sip of champagne to promote this. And you are basically so gone that you can't even, like, realize that the director has yelled action. And they have to be like, Orson, you want to do something?
That commercial is, like, guaranteed to get a laugh out of me if I've been having a bad day. Just, like, the first, like, 10 seconds where he's, champagne from the... just, like...
I'm just, like, I watched that again today. I was just like, what even is this? Oh, my God.
Oh, man. It's so good. bless his heart. He was having a good time while he was famous.
Right.
And also, I love how his like co-stars are laughing like during the takes, because he's there, but then he's like with some young couple, and I guess they're the ones that ordered the champagne in the commercial. But like, there's a couple of takes where they're like just laughing because they can't contain themselves. So for me, I went with more of a figurative meaning, because gluttony, obviously it's like, oh, you're a fat person, you're a glutton. I feel like it's also just like overdoing it, like I could have put Ari Aster on here for having cuts that are way too long.
Stanley Kubrick for his incessant
over like doing like a million takes of the same shot. Yeah. Who I decided to go with, especially since I have yet to have any horror reps as the horror fan of the show, I'm going to go with Eli Roth, just because when he does do scary movies, he cannot stop himself from having gratuitous amounts of gore, to the point where like Green Inferno is like, it might make you throw up watching it. It's so bad. So like, and to the point where I think it even kind of turned some of his fans away from that particular movie. And I also think of like the later, like Hostel 2, I remember went way overboard, or even Hostel. Like my opinion of Hostel, I think it's a great movie. I think it is definitely like important for its time, but I don't think you needed to see the torture for it to be like, and I'm sure some people would disagree with me, and it's like, oh, that's what makes it scary. What's happening to these people, so like, do you really need like the 15-minute scene of it happening?
Right.
In my opinion, not so much. So, not necessarily the worst sin, cinema sin, but he does overdo it a bit, in my opinion. So I put Eli Roth for gore gluttony.
I mean, he did give us, the House with the Clock in its walls.
He gave us that, and then I think he kind of. I was gonna say he also did the new Borderlands movie, although that's like, I don't even think he wants to own that. Also, I have not seen his Thanksgiving movie. That's one that like kind of came out and surprised me. I think back in 2023. I still have not seen it. It's another one of those.
It was. Yeah, it was 2023.
Everyone liked it. I know it did well. Everyone liked it. It was like a solid slasher movie, and from what I understand, it's not like that gory. So I haven't seen it yet, but that's on my back burner at some point. But we've come to the final one. So T, what is your pick for Sloth?
Okay, so this is one that I kind of like struggled with, and this one's kind of just a cop out because I couldn't really find somebody that I thought personally fit. I even looked up the technical definition of sloth. What is the Catholic definition of sloth? Like, I was trying to figure out some way to make these work. So I did find out, though, I guess one definition of it is the refusal to act. Not necessarily laziness, but refusing to act. So I decided finally just to go with Martin Scorsese for this, because he's just refusing to just accept that the fashion of cinema has changed, and is kind of just stuck where he was, like when he was in, like, he's not like trying to relive his golden days. He's just still making movies the way that he does, which does still draw an audience. But I'm saying when he's sitting there talking about this stuff isn't cinema, I'm like, dude, move on. Like the theater has left the building and you're still inside. That's kind of what I mean. It's kind of a cop out one. I couldn't really find one that I felt perfectly fit, so I settled with him.
Fair enough, especially with what we're talking about today. I went with the general definition, but for me, like in applying it to a director, I went with lazy filmmaking. And like, I have two examples on my list. I'm going to go with one. A lot of people would argue George Lucas, for instance, got lazy later on. Like, he directed Star Wars back in the day, pretty much stopped directing entirely until the prequels. And then for his filmmaking with the newer Star Wars movies, he sat on a couch where, everyone was on green screen, and they just did it in like a very clinical, self-contained thing, and they did most of the work in post, and he just sat there with a cup of coffee on a couch watching actors act in a green room. You could say that's lazy filmmaking. So that's my example. That could have been my pick. I'm going to go with Zach Braff because I recently rewatched Garden State. I think maybe it's been a year at this point. It's one of those, it was like the indie kids like favorite movie back in the day, and I remember kind of jumping on the bandwagon when I went to film school and a bunch of people recommended it to me. And I do remember feeling very emotional watching it, but rewatching it now, I noticed it was very like void of any real like depth, or like there's like a speech Zach Braff gives to Natalie Portman in the very end of the movie, and I remember thinking it was so deep when I was like 14, 15, and then rewatching it I was just like, he said nothing. So what I do think, like with Garden State, I think a lot of the heavy lifting is the soundtrack. It's got all these like indie band mega hits from the early 2000s that have gone on, the Shins, as well. I think the music touched people emotionally.
So he relied
manipulated you.
He relied on cultural touchstones instead of like speaking through the
He
writing.
relied on a really good soundtrack, as well as things that were like popular at the time. Years ago when we talked about 500 Days of Summer, we talked about the Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Mm-hmm.
That's Natalie Portman in a nutshell. Like, oh, here's this cute quirky girl, but she's also epileptic, so she's got to wear a helmet around. Oh my god. And then that falls into the whole like, it could be a whole review, but pretty much it's just like, there wasn't a lot to the movie. There wasn't a lot of change that happened to the characters. There was like, rewatching it was very useful because I was just like, this is pretty much a nothing burger of a movie. And I think a lot of teenagers just liked it because the music hit them in the feels.
Yeah. And
paired with something happening, like, like there were some dramatic elements to the story, like the fact that Zach Braff had kind of a touchy relationship with his father. So I could see that really resonating with some people. But for the most part, I feel like it was just the music was doing a lot of heavy lifting. And there was just a lot of like sad things happening to Zach Braff in the story rather than like actual growth happening.
Right.
Just my opinion. And again, this could be like a whole review. I could rewatch it again and like take notes. But I feel like either of those are like good examples of lazy filmmaking where you're not really like putting any work into what you're doing. You're just letting either a special effects team or a really good soundtrack do the heavy lifting to make people emotionally resonate with your work.
Well, that and also it's set in New Jersey. That would make anybody sad.
Seriously.
So that I guess is our picks for the 7. I was almost at 7 deadly directors.
7 deadly directors.
Okay, we'll go with that. I mean, to be fair, I personally think some of these people could kill people if we let them. Actually, some of them have killed people, so never mind. So that was kind of just an interesting sort of just fun little game we did there. Before we get into our main topic, before we do that, what is your drink for this episode?
Well, so this movie was a little tricky because it was like I couldn't remember if there was anything they drank in the movie, and then rewatching it I'm like, okay, not really, not unless you count that like bottle of milk that he steals, that Hugo steals. So
this week Whiskey will be having spiked milk in honor of that 5-second sequence.
I'm going non-alcoholic this episode. I've kind of been on a bit of a health kick. My back has been hurting me, so I've been going to the gym every day, stretching, like trying to get back to normal, and I've cut out drinking for the time being. So since there was nothing like specifically in the movie that they drank outside of like the milk, I saw while I was at the grocery store a nifty little probiotic soda called Hum. So It is the berry cream version of that, so it'll be good for my gut. And sounds good opening it.
I love the sound of opening cans.
Right? So I got that for me. How about you, T?
So I was trying to find something that kind of went with like visuals here. It's a very visual movie. So I settled on Blue Train, the whole thing set in a train station. Pretty simple cocktail. According to Difford's guide.com, it is gin, triple sec, blue curacao, or curacao, I can't forget how that's pronounced, and lemon juice. So just a tasty little tasty little thing. And the review said it's an okay cocktail. That comes up later. So yeah, that's my pick. That was my pick for, I think, very delicious, very tasty, and also visually striking. It's blue. So yes, that's what I picked. Delicious, visually striking cocktail, and of course, prebiotic sodas are always good. So, or probiotic. I forget which one you said, but they have both of them.
Probiotic.
Probiotic. Okay. So that being said, in case you haven't read it or clicked blindly, today's movie of topic is 2011's Hugo, keeping in our theme with bad directors. I'm sorry, good movies from bad directors, or just bad directors in general. I'm totally kidding. I'm just trying to, farm engagement here. But this is a thing on our show. I have my own I have my own issues with Mr. Scorsese, but this is a film that I do enjoy. Hugo, 2011, the basic stuff. It's directed by, of course, Martin Scorsese. It's written by John Logan, who also wrote, he did a bunch of stuff. Gladiator, Sweeney Todd, Skyfall. Cinematography was by Robert Richardson, who did Platoon. He did the Kill Bill franchise. There's something else. I can't think of what it is. Music was by Howard Shore. We really don't need to say much there. He did one of my personal favorite scores of all time, The Silence of the Lambs. That's like one I have on for like vibe music. I love that score. This was adapted from a novel, The Inventions of Hugo Cabret by Brian Selznick. The art director was Dante Ferretti. Now, this movie, although celebrated widely, and done by a allegedly celebrated director. Its budget was 150 to 170 million. It was actually cheaper than I thought it was going to be, but it only brought in about 185.8 million. So while that sounds like they made their money back, that doesn't count for marketing costs and all this other stuff. So what I was reading was that it probably lost around $100 million. So awards for this was on lots of critics' top 10 lists that year. Many, there was probably not an award circuit that this movie was not on, just scrolling through them all. But I did go through and point out and pull out my two favorites to talk about, which is the BAFTAs and the Academy Awards. So this was up for several Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, Best Costume Design, Best Film Editing, Best Sound Mixing, Best Visual Effects, Best Sound Editing, and Best Original Score. It had 5 wins for Art Direction, Cinematography, Sound Mixing, Visual Effects, and Sound Editing. And then for BAFTAs, it was up for Best Director, Cinematography, Original Score, Sound, Editing, Production Design, Costume Design, and Makeup and Hairstyling. The point is, BAFTAs, it took home 2 awards for Sound and Production Design. Now, when this movie came out, early 2011s, it's a story of Hugo. Hugo's an orphan. He lives in the train station. His father died. His uncle took off, whose job he's actually doing now. And he left him this, I think it's called an automaton. And the automaton, he's been working on trying to fix it. He's been stealing parts from this person who has the bodega is not the word, but little store or counter down in the train station. He finally gets caught, and the guy takes his book, threatens to burn it. We don't know why. He's all emotional about this. Later on, Hugo makes friends with his goddaughter, Isabel. They go on this little adventure to recover it. We basically find out that the guy is celebrated film director George's... Oh my god, is it Milan or Malo? Milian. I think it's Milian. Is it Milian? I can't sound stupid, so I'm going to look this up.
I think they were pronouncing it Malay in the film. I don't speak French, so I'm not an expert in how it's pronounced, but I could have sworn they were calling him Malay, Georges Malay.
Oh yeah, it's George Malay. Yeah, it's Malay. You're right. Thank you. So neither of what I was saying, but I was on the right track. Georges Malay, who had basically been forgotten at the time. He decided it was too painful for him to go back. They helped him rediscover his love of the work and kind of brought his attention back to the world. And that's the happy ending, and I think it's also implied that he adopts Hugo, or at least takes him in or something. So it's a very interesting story. I would almost say very early 2000s, or kind of actually not early 2000s, kind of like in that period, because there was a period of time, I don't know if you remember this, where steampunk kind of got mainstream for a quick minute. And I think that's when I remember seeing this trailers. This was 2011. So this is basically when I started looking at movie trailers for myself. I know I was like a high school and like my mom's not going to take me to movies anymore. So I need to look at movies myself. But I remember thinking, oh my gosh, it's just like a steampunk movie, because I remember thinking this is kind of when it got big. Do you kind of like remember that time period when steampunk became mainstream for a minute?
Yeah, I mean, like if you're in the nerd circle, I'm sure a lot of people would argue that it's still very popular. Um, it kind of gave me like a very like fairy tale kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no magic in this movie or anything, but it almost felt like a Disney movie in that regard of like, oh, this kid who's come on poor times kind of stumbling into this adventure or like this, mystery that he wants to solve. The When I saw the trailer, I mean I was not in school at that point. I was, like working. But I remember I was mainly taken aback by the fact, like, wait, Martin Scorsese directed this, the Departed
Right.
guy,
Yeah.
the Goodfellas guy. Like, it felt like such a. He kind of was on this, like, because before that he did Shine a Light, the Rolling Stones documentary,
Okay.
the third one or whatever he's done. And that one had this very corny kind of Disney vibe to it. I remember I went out with, like, my school and we ended up watching that one. I think we even saw it in IMAX. Anyway, like it was a fun time, but it also felt very whimsical for a Scorsese picture. And then he followed that one up with this, and whimsical is the word I was looking for when I saw the trailer. That's what it made me think of, and I thought it looked really good. Obviously Martin Scorsese directed it, so it probably was going to be really good. But it was very interesting to see, like, oh wow, this looks so different from what he's usually doing.
Right.
But I remember enjoying this quite a bit. This also came out during the big 3D craze.
Yes, I was going to touch
and that
on
was
that.
like a big, yeah, that was like a big marketing thing with this. And my dad loves 3D movies, like so. I went to see this with him.
He probably likes
say,
my favorite
like,
Jaws movie. That is my
he
Jaws
probably
3D
does.
is my favorite one. Like, except for the cheesy 3D, I think the story is much more interesting than 2 was. But go on.
Fair enough, I guess.
Well, I'm sorry. Jaws 2
but,
was the one where the teenagers just kind of just are on an island by themselves and just scream a lot. And I'm like, okay, it's not very interesting.
that doesn't really happen. Well, nah. Anyway, different movie. Well, anyway, like the 3D aspects, obviously rewatching it, I just, streamed it on Amazon, so couldn't watch it in 3D, but
I don't know if they
I
offer it in
remember
3D anymore, because like I watched it on Pluto.
well, not on Amazon. You can't really stream a 3D movie, and like no one has a 3D TV anymore. So
Yeah.
Anyway, but I do remember the 3D was solid. And watching this, I could remember where there were 3D elements. Like I remember there's kind of a long shot where he's walking up a stairwell, and there's like a pendulum from a clock swinging towards the lens, and I remember that actually came out of the screen.
Mhm.
So it was well done 3D as well. But I liked this quite a bit, and I remember rooting for it at the Oscars quite a bit that year. Maybe not for every category, but it was definitely one of my favorite films that year.
So no, definitely the 3D in this was, from what I've read, because again, I didn't see this till later, but I read several sources that were basically lauding the 3D effects and then how they were designed, kind of saying this is the movie that 3D was kind of made for, as far as they're thinking like long term, not like just the gimmicky, log coming out of you from the screen, like it actually added essential depth and really enhanced the story. So no, the 3D was thing, but like this came out during the 3D craze. Unfortunately, the 3D craze has died out, and I'm actually curious. I didn't check, but I'm actually curious to see if, like, because I'm sure this is still in print. If you like were to buy a new copy, like from Amazon or Target or something, would there be a 3D option still on the disc? You know what I'm saying?
I don't know about now, but I know. So my dad, because he likes 3D, he has a 3D TV at his house, and he buys 3D movies. Like to the point where I was visiting once, and he bought like over Amazon or somewhere. I don't know if he like went onto some weird movie website. There was like this awful B horror movie from like the early 80s called Parasite, and it was in 3D, and we watched it and it sucked and the 3D sucked, but like that's what I mean, like he buys all the 3D movies. So we saw this, we enjoyed it, so he definitely bought the 3D version and he still has it. So
what I'm hearing
I know that at the time,
what I'm hearing is you did not visit your dad to watch this movie when you could have like reported back to us, is what I'm hearing.
I have watched it when I have visited in the past.
That's true.
Like, I mean, this came out in 2011. So I have rewatched it there and like watched it on the 3D TV and everything like that. And it's still great. So when it came out, I know there was a 3D option. If you were to buy it now, that's the question, right?
Yeah.
Is like, because I don't know if they've sold out of the original prints or if those are like more expensive because they're more rare now. But I feel like if they were making new Blu-rays or 4K of this, they probably are not bothering with 3D just because no one has a 3D TV anymore and it's such a novelty now.
Right. Well, and I also feel like this is definitely a movie that even though 3D was seriously taken into account in with the visuals and the storytelling, I feel like you still are able to adequately enjoy this. Maybe you're not as immersive as like you are before, but I think I kind of think though, I'm not saying you wouldn't miss something, but it's not like as detrimental as like, you know, like scenes are missing. You know what I'm trying to say?
I think it's equally good. I also think it's great that watching it not in 3D, like on Amazon, you're not like thinking, wow, that looks like a 3D effect.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like if you're aware that it's a 3D movie, you can point them out and be like, oh, that would probably be a 3D effect. If you did not know this came out in 3D and you just watched this randomly, it would not stick out at you. And frankly, like I think the 3D partly works because rewatching this, it's been a while since I've seen this. And it's amazing. It is such a visual movie. There's not a lot of dialogue. Like the first 15 minutes or so before the credits even start or the title comes up.
Yeah.
There's almost no dialogue except for when Hugo's trying to steal something and, you know, gets his notebook taken. That's like the only bit of dialogue in the first like 15 minutes of the movie. So I think part of the reason 3D is so well implemented is because this is such a visually told story. There's not a lot, like later on, you know, like when they're getting into who George is and all of this other stuff, obviously there's some exposition that is told via dialogue. But for the most part, it's almost like there's not a lot of dialogue.
Right.
You can almost like
when you compare it
like
to
someone
like
from another country could watch
Yeah.
this and like still understand what's going on.
Right. And you know, the fact, and what's interesting about the fact that there was no dialogue at the beginning, I was reading like on IMDb during their crazy credit section. They were like, oh, the first 15 minutes, you know, of the movie, like the credits or the title didn't show up until the first 15 minutes. And I was like, I remember sitting through and watching that didn't feel like 15 minutes. Like, you know what I mean? This was a movie that, despite I think being 2 hours, I think is what it is, I feel like it does not feel its length. And visually it does really draw you in, and that really does help. Like, and this is a big thing for me because like with ADHD, that's one of the issues I do have, is sitting through stuff. And this to me did not feel like it didn't feel long, because like even good movies, when you like have issues sitting still, feel long. And this one was so visually striking and it really pulled you in, especially those first 15 minutes, that I didn't notice its length, if that made sense.
No, and you're not alone either. In fact, when I was keying it up, I was like, wait, this was 2 hours long? I thought it was like an hour and 40 minutes.
Right? Like it feels like it feels like a 90-minute movie.
It does, and yeah, it doesn't feel its length, and it's not obnoxious. Like, I think it hits the hour mark around the time Hugo and
that's like when they discover who he is. Isabel.
Well, so no, when they go to Isabel, thank you. When they go to the movies,
oh right, yeah.
you know, they go to the Harold Lloyd movie. That's like the halfway point of the movie, and it does not feel like it's been an hour. It feels like it's been like 30 minutes.
Right.
So no, it gets through real quick. It does not like feel like a 2-hour movie at all. Even when you know it's a 2-hour movie, it doesn't have any pointless scenes. It doesn't linger on anything. Frankly, it's kind of perfect. Like rewatching it, it was like so many elements came together. It's funny you mentioned Howard Shore. That was something else that I forgot how much I loved the score to this movie. Mm-hmm. It's so haunting and mysterious and melancholy. It like fits the vibe so well.
It's very
and that's
French
another
too.
thing. Very French. Another like when I was watching it, I noticed there's almost no break in the score. Like it's pretty much music for almost the whole movie. It's almost just
like, and those musics are my those movies are my vibe. I love, like, people complain about heavily scored movies. I like heavily scored movies. I'm like, you're using a storytelling medium. Use all of it.
No, exactly. It's honestly, like, everything just comes together really well, and there's not a lot of fat to trim on this. To be honest, it's like,
I would actually argue for some of the story they tried to say, and I'm going to talk more about the story because I do think there are some issues with it. I wouldn't call it perfect, but one of my main complaints about this movie, and again, this is as somebody who enjoyed it. I do enjoy this movie because it is just so magical, and it does kind of take you back to the spot where you found whatever it is that inspires you. You can like really feel that, especially in that sort of, not the end scene, but like when they get him to rewatch movies again. Like you don't feel like what you felt when you discovered your passion. I don't know what's wrong with you, but there are some issues I have with the movies. My big one is, despite this being adapted, and I have not read the novel, what is it called? The Invention of Hugo Cabret, and it being called Hugo, I'd actually argue that, and I'm going to use a term that one of my friends coined when he was talking about the book Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. Hugo is not really the story. This is really more made to be as a sort of like introductory to the general public who probably doesn't know Georges Malot, and really talk about him. And Hugo's kind of more as this branch or this tree that you're supposed to like hang the stories of George Malot on. I'd actually argue there's not enough Hugo in this movie, and I feel like his story is very minimal. Not minimal. It's a very minimal story. His perspective, his whole storyline, and we don't go like, there's not enough in it where I feel like that sounds bad, like I should care really about. I'm more interested in what's happening on with George's than I am about Hugo. Hugo's kind of just there. I mean, he's pulling everything together, but there's not much developed about him, I think, that really makes his story stand out as like, okay, this definitely needed to be a storyline in itself. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making any sense here.
No, I think you're making some sense. I do think it's funny, between the two of us, you're the one that learned French in school, and you keep pronouncing his name Milot when it's Millier.
I know. I haven't taken French in over a decade.
Yeah, so that was something I noticed when I saw this, because it's like, oh, it's just called Hugo, and then you see the title of the book. It's got a very like uninteresting title, like Hugo, what's that supposed to mean? Or like you think that he's gonna play a bigger part in the story. It's one of those things where I don't know what you would call this movie, and it's at least close to the original book title, because Hugo, you feel bad in that he's like, he has no family. Like later on, it's revealed that his uncle is dead. So he's officially like a full-blown orphan at that point, like no family to like, you know, take him in after that.
I mean, like, why not call this like the automaton or something? Because the automaton, I feel like, is what really ties everything together. Not like by eliminating it and narrowing it down to just a one word like Hugo, I feel like there was we needed more Hugo, is what I'm saying.
Finding out that this movie bombed is so interesting to me, because I don't think I was even like, I was obviously like into movies at that time, but I don't think I paid attention to box office numbers when I was like 18, 19. So I probably didn't even know it bombed until just now, but it's like, it's got an uninteresting title. It looks like a kid's movie, but
I mean,
we're at this age now.
It is adapted.
It is a kid's movie, but
it is adapted from a either children's or young adult novel. I don't. I really don't like saying like it's
the problem.
Go, actually, you go on. You go first. Go first.
Well, the problem is that I doubt that I've never heard of this book. I doubt a lot of kids, like some kids probably did read that book, but I don't, it doesn't have the power of Harry Potter.
Right.
Or Artemis Fowl, or like, it's not one of the best-selling children's books. And it's frankly about like silent film cinema. It's like something that you and I are very passionate about, and you and I know who George Millet is, because he's a real person. Fun fact, everyone listening, he's a real person who really made these films and really lost all of them. And that too, it's like not even clear that that's what it was about. I like going into this movie blind all those years ago. I was like pleasantly surprised this had something to do with filmmaking. Because the way it almost looked like it was trying to appeal to like the Harry Potter crowd.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, ooh, this magical robot, and what secret does it hide and stuff. So again, for me as an adult who was already into filmmaking, like finding out, oh, cool, it's like about filmmaking, it was like a pleasant surprise. But I don't think that it was going to draw a big crowd with the kids. Because I don't think a lot of kids had read that book or knew what it was about or anything. And frankly, like kids are more interested in like, the next Minecraft movie.
Oh my God. You need to be a little bit nicer to kids. But no, I get what you're saying. Well, I get what you're saying. It's like, it's not necessary. I wouldn't say it's too mature, but the subject matter is not going to be an instant, hit with kids. Basically, you kind of have to go into this as almost like an introduction. Like if you want to be like, okay, kids, here's an introductory into my passion, or, it's somebody who already kind of knew it. And because otherwise I do think children would be overall a little bored with this movie.
So I think if you sat a kid down and showed them this movie, they'd get into it. But kids they're not stupid, but they are you have to get their attention. And it's getting harder and harder to do that as time goes on, and their attention span gets shorter and shorter. And I don't think this movie was very well marketed to kids. I don't think it was very well marketed to, because, I went to see it, but I don't think your average Martin Scorsese fan is going to go see Hugo when the last film they saw was
like The Departed.
Yeah. So it's kind of one of those where it's like a good movie, but who do you sell it to? It's not going to appeal to his usual demographic. It's not going to appeal to the demographic that you want it to appeal to. Like, it's one of those things, again, if I were like a substitute teacher and I was given the free reign, just like, oh, put a movie on to shut them up. Like, if I put this movie on, I think, like, let's say it's like a second grade class or something like that, I think they'd be into it. But yeah, like, as far as like getting them into the seat, I don't know what else was coming out in 2011. Probably like a Marvel movie. There was probably a Pixar movie.
Well, they said
this was right around the time that Disney was on the uptick. So it was, like Tangled, I think, came out in 2010. So like that's the stuff kids were into.
And they said that at the box office, it was competing with, oh my God, where did I put it? I know one of the things it was competing with was Breaking Dawn Part 1. And the Muppets movie.
Ooh.
So
yeah,
it wasn't up to now. Now, according to Wikipedia, producer Graham King say that he takes responsibility for it. He said budget wise he says there just wasn't enough prep time and no one really realized how complicated doing a 3D film was going to be. I went through 3 line producers because no one knew exactly what was going on. Do I still think it's a masterpiece that'll be talked about in 20 years? Yes, but once the schedule started getting out of whack, things just spiraled, and that's where the avalanche began. So Um, so at least we have somebody taking some responsibility, and I would kind of argue that it's not entirely his fault. Um, and going back to the runtime of this movie, we talked about how, it's 2 hours, but it feels like 90 minutes. And I said it almost feels like that's not enough time. And the reason is he try to put in a lot of these, like not a lot, but like 2 or 3 subplots that are kind of never fully realized. I mean, they are, but they feel very like vapid and like not they like the outcome doesn't feel fulfilling. Like we have the one with I don't know who the larger guy and the woman who runs the cafe, and he keeps trying to visit her, and their dogs have issue and her dog has an issue with him, so he finally brings the dog at the end. That was one thing. And then we had with the inspector and the flower lady, they were trying to do kind of like a romance will they won't they thing going on. And then we also had, which to me felt totally kind of shoehorned in at the last minute, the inspector's backstory about how he was an orphan and no one took care of him, that's why he sends all these kids to orphanages, but we don't hear any of that until like literally almost the end of the movie. And then we also have just the like I said, as much as there's not enough Hugo in here, most of it's devoted to when he's trying to help this thing. But we also had, he was supposed to be working at the shop, which I think he did for like a day in the context of this movie. And then we also had his constant, on the run run-ins with the inspector. So there was just a lot of subplots in here that to me made the movie feel in parts unfocused. It's like, what's important here? Because at the end we do kind of get answers. We almost get answers for everything, but except for the George's, oh my god, say it again. Malay, the George's Malay plot, none of the other ones I feel like has a very satisfying ending, and in some of them I'm like, really, that's the ending you went with? So like it did feel overstuffed, like he was trying to do too much. How did you feel about that?
The stuff with the inspector, I think, is warranted because it's just part of Hugo's daily life, is that he is expected to maintain the train station, but at the same time, he can't be caught maintaining the train station, because if it's ever found out that he's living there alone, he's going to be sent to the orphanage. So, like, the stuff with the inspector, I feel like wasn't shoehorned in. At least his, like,
I'm talking about,
run-ins
I meant
with
like
him
his
and trying to
his
avoid him.
backstory was.
No, for sure.
That was like
but you did mention his repeated run-ins
Yes.
with him, so I'm getting to that first. As for his backstory, I think it's satisfying because for the whole movie you're wondering, like, why is this guy such a jerk? And then it makes a lot of it make sense. Like, he doesn't think that what he's doing is bad for these kids. He's like, I'm giving you an opportunity to find work, to find, like, it also makes sense why he's having trouble with the flower lady and why he has like low self-esteem and stuff, is it's like, nobody loves you. You have to learn to love yourself. And, like, this self-sustaining kind of, philosophy he has, like, it's interesting. Well, you get it at the end because he's not like a main character. Like, throughout the movie there's the constant presence of him, and hopefully Hugo doesn't get caught. But as far as it might feel like it's shoehorned in, but it's kind of like we don't really get him talking about his backstory until then, because Hugo isn't in a room with him. You could have maybe done it with the other kid that he picks up.
Yeah.
In some ways, like, it feels like this was trying to be, or not trying to be a comedy, but have comedic moments. Because there's also, I feel like maybe I just didn't remember it, or maybe I didn't notice it, but there was also an ongoing joke with the inspector and the orphanage guy.
Oh yeah,
where it's
with
like,
his wife.
Your wife left you. Yeah, exactly.
Whose baby is it?
So that was like, exactly. Well, have you had relations with her within the last year? No, which automatically is like, well, okay, then it's not yours. Well, and that too, the fact that it's Sacha Baron Cohen who's cast as the inspector, it's like it's meant to be kind of a comedic role as well. So I don't know. It kind of felt, So besides Georges Méliès, you do have a segment of a Howard Lloyd film.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting some elements of like classic silent film slapstick Charlie Chaplin. In fact, that's one thing that really reminds me, like Hugo reminds me of The Kid. I don't know if you've seen that Charlie Chaplin film, but it's like, he takes care of like.
I have not seen that one.
It's a very, very celebrated Chaplin film, and it's basically like, he's the tramp, he's like this homeless guy, and he's taking care of a little orphan kid. And obviously there's more to it than that, but it's probably one of the most tear-jerky Chaplin movies, and it's one that a lot of people say is like their favorite. And I got a lot of The Kid vibes from this movie, and I feel like that's kind of what they're doing with those little side plots, because once again there's no dialogue with the side plots besides the inspector and the flower lady. A lot of it is all just like visual comedy gags, and it kind of felt like something out of a silent film, so I feel like that's what it's alluding to. And as far as like the book, I don't know if it goes more into those relationships, but yeah, they didn't really distract for me, just because they're peppered in and they're not like taking up a ton of time, or the film's not like sidetracking itself to talk about these people. It's usually like Hugo's watching them.
Yeah, that's
kind of like another thing, is like he's almost like a voyeur himself, like, which kind of goes into the him liking movies thing. It's like he's almost creating.
That did give me Rear Window vibes, especially towards the beginning when he hasn't talked yet. He's just watching this stuff happen in the train station.
Exactly. So yeah, for me, I didn't get the same, like, I wouldn't say it's superfluous. I wouldn't say it's shoehorned in, just because it's kind of melded well with the main story. Like there's not like a point where the film just stops and sidetracks to like another person. Again, it's usually like when Hugo is like maneuvering through people, or if he's watching them, that's when the story is happening, or the side plots are happening, and it's kind of from his perspective.
I guess,
so at least that's my opinion on it.
I guess, and maybe this is because it is supposed to be kind of voyeurist. I guess for me, those side plots, I just feel like I didn't learn enough about these people to care.
I get that, but that's where it feels like a silent movie, because silent movies, it's usually just about the kind of surface level cuteness of what's going on.
That's true.
Like, it's, again, the movie is not about these people, so you don't really need. It's the same thing with, like, let's take the cafe owner and the big guy. Like, just let's talk about subliminal messaging in your brain. So like, it's, as unkind as it might be, like, people just kind of find heavier set people funny. And there is like a literal point where Hugo like dives under him and like pulls his pants down, and there's like a ha-ha moment with that. Mm-hmm. And then there's also, so like, okay, he's chubby and he's kind of clumsy, and I think he's an artist, like, if I remember correctly, he's like either a sketch artist or a painter or something, so he's creative. And then you have the cafe owner, the big guy's gonna like the cafe owner because haha food. And then on like another set, she's kind of, she's compassionate because she owns pets. She has her own cafe, so she's creative in the sense that she has food. So there's like kind of an automatic pairing with that. Like, at least in the silent film side, it's just little things like this that kind of, you write your own characters for these people. Like, they'd be a perfect match. They're both creative. He's fat. She makes food.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Like, it's so like, see, again, if I feel like if the movie just stopped and it's like, my name is Peter something or other,
and
like, and
I smelled your croissants.
I have a thyroid condition, and that's why I'm really fat. Yeah. Like, that's when it would kind of feel like the film just stopped to like sidetrack itself with like these people's lives.
And maybe this is just, and again, this is probably just an issue because like filmmaking and storytelling has progressed from the silent film era, that sometimes, and this is just my opinion, and I understand this is there's supposed to be a lot of odes to the early times of film, in the times of George's, oh my god, Milio, I think. Did I get it right that time? And I get all that. It's just, there's something about it that bothers me, and I'm kind of just like, we have advanced our storytelling techniques. Why are we not using them here? Because we do use them towards the end, and I do want to touch on that. But I don't know. There was just something about them, and then especially, and again, I'm probably just thinking too much into this, especially at the end when Flower Lady gets together with the inspector, I mean, I get it. He's cool now, and Hugo has made him a new brace for his leg and all that fun stuff. I was just like, girl, the fact that he just took a child and like you were all telling him what did he actually do wrong, and it's like nothing, and he still just like wants to go and imprison him. I'm like, girl, red flag. Like, you should not get together with this man. But again, I've probably been watching way too many like Reddit "Am I the Antagonist" stories.
Well, and again, like, you know, this isn't like real life advice or anything. This is just like from the story, but like from his backstory, you understand that he has never experienced love from another person.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way he is, you know, like he's harsh to these kids because that's what he thinks like is best for them, because that's how he was, you know. So
I kind of
the idea, it's like a very fairy tale ending.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the love healed him. He has experienced love from her and also from Hugo, showing him compassion by building him a brace after he was so mean to him. You know, it's the Who's singing after the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the show of care for him is like what heals him and makes him less of a jerk in the end.
I wish though that when Hugo is captured and put into the cage and he's explaining why he sends him to the orphanage, and I'm like, Hugo, open your mouth, tell him what you're doing. You are doing the work, you are doing the job, you are being responsible. And I'm just like, this is like definitely one of those scenes I'm like, a little communication could have gone a long way. I mean, like, that's
like Hugo in a nutshell. There's so many times when he's just standing there saying nothing, like at the beginning of the movie. I'm like, just say what you like. I have an automaton. Like, yeah. It has a heart-shaped key. Can I see that? Like, there's a lot of that. And who knows? Maybe it's because, at least with the inspector, what my counter argument would be,
he's not going to believe
he's
not going to believe him or listen. I get that.
He's not going to believe anything he says. You know, still would have been worth trying, but at least as far as that character goes, he's not going to believe anything Hugo says.
Well, and I will say, until the very end of the movie, and I was like, dang, Martin Scorsese's doing a really good job of making Georges Milan, like, really unlikable. And, like, I guess he kind of has his coming to Jesus moment at the end, but I'm like, he spent a lot of that movie blaming everyone else for his problems and being super toxic and, like, telling people he burned their notebooks, and he really did, which we never see the notebook again. She claims she never burned it, but we never see it again. And also, and I'm just like, oh, and he has the nerve to call Hugo cruel. I was just like, and I get it's supposed to be he's the broken robot and Hugo fixes him. I get all that. I was just like, come on, can we get a little bit more compassion? You know what I mean? Especially in a movie that's adapted from material that's aimed at younger adults. It's a lot, but the ending of this movie was very interesting because of this movie, I did look a lot into Georges Millet's life. Oh my god, I know I'm saying that wrong. Please say it again for me one more time.
Georges Méliès.
Méliès, thank you. Méliès. Georges Méliès was...
Who wants to be a Méliès?
I know, right? So, obviously for, you know, compression purposes, there was a lot of stuff left out, but it's super interesting that I found out that he founded a studio in my hometown and was there for about 7 years. It's the same one that they reference. It's like the Star film company or whatever he called it. They had a ranch out here that they used as a set. This was their studio out here to make like a bunch of like westerns. I think they said they made like 70 films out here. And this was like shocking news to me because I'm like, are you telling me one of the 4 most people in the movie world at that time, and probably just icon and legendary creator, had a studio here and no one's told me that? I was like,
well, that's
fascinated.
That is actually crazy too, because he was French. So it's like, and also back in those days, you didn't have airplanes.
Right.
So if that's true, that means he was like, I don't know if that just wouldn't even make sense. So he must have been going out to Texas to shoot stuff.
Yeah.
For his films, which is crazy. Again, like this is before air travel was like a common thing. So that's actually wild.
So they said that he was creating, he had a studio in New York that he left because his own one that he kind of shut down and left because, basically having 4 seasons is not conducive for filmmaking. Then he came here and was here for 7 years, created a whole bunch of westerns and everything, had his own ranch, all that fun stuff. And then after that, he was in somewhere in California before returning to France. Now, but I was just like, y'all, this is huge cinema history. We need to like talk about this more. This is a major thing. I wish they had talked about it in the movie, but they didn't. But I'm just like, oh. So yeah, he had a whole affiliation with, they talk about his thing with the Lumiere brothers. He had an affiliation. I didn't understand the whole thing. There was a corporation that Edison owned that he was part of. Basically, Edison was trying to control the film industry in the UK and in the US. And, there's lots of problems with that. And then there's also, it's up in the air as to whether or not Edison actually invented the filmmaking camera. My personal belief is that it was Louis Le Prince. But the Lumiere, there's a whole conspiracy that Edison had him murdered and everything like this, because he just like vanished and his equipment did too. He was like killed and his like stuff disappeared. And I'm just like, that is not an accident. And then just shortly after, Edison files the patent. It's a whole thing. But the more you look at Edison, the less nice of a person he becomes.
Oh yeah, no, he's known now for being quite a rascal.
Yes, just for the sake of this, let's just leave it at rascal. But I do like they did talk about the Lumiere brothers from the very beginning. But I love that was interesting that they talked about how they didn't think it would catch on. And like, look at where we are now. Filmmaking led to TV, and TV basically controls our entire lives right now. So that's fascinating to me. We did have a little bit though of some revisionist history going on here. But I do think though that I'm not going to fault them for it, because I do think he was trying to do here what Ryan Murphy, who's also not one of my favorite people. I just sound like a massive hater on this show. I just do. I'm sorry. But he tried to do that with his series Hollywood. I don't know if you watched it or anything. It was basically set during the golden era, and it was basically about, people of color in Hollywood and closeted actors and stuff. And he was like, I wanted to give them their happy ending. And essentially, basically, with the message of it being is, oh my God, if those early pioneers had just tried harder, we wouldn't have racism or homophobia today. That was essentially what ended up happening. And it was very problematic. But what he did...
Guys,
I know.
Have you ever tried just not being racist?
I know. Right?
Have you just tried maybe not being racist?
Oh my God.
Thanks.
This
is a Ryan Murphy production.
Oh my God. But so in this case, they did sort of revise what ended up happening to him. But they did make a point, and the reason why I think it was on purpose and I'm okay with it is he does make the point of saying happy endings only happen in movies. And Georges Million said that. And so essentially, he was living in poverty at the end of with the period this thing happened. He was selling toys at this storefront that his wife owned. I don't know why she owned it, but she owned this storefront probably when they got married. So that they could make money. He was literally just sitting there every single day. He didn't have days off. He said that he would basically work in the winter and the summer, and this is before interior heat and interior cooling. So that was not fun, selling toys and things from his shop to exist, essentially, to pay for his existence to exist. When he was rediscovered. And then there was a whole bunch of praise leaped upon him and all this stuff. But like in the movie, he gets praise, he gets stuff. Unfortunately, that did not translate into any money. So he stayed living in poverty for, I believe, about 5 more years until the Film Academy, I think is what it was called, or obviously it was in French, raised money to have him put into, to have him, basically to put him in sort of like not a retirement home, but like, they got him housing. It wasn't the best. It wasn't like he was like living large. He had a home for like, that was like, he was in danger of losing for the first time in forever. And it was like that for the last couple of years until he passed. So he had a very, very tragic backstory, even though he did get rediscovered during his time. They did so they do kind of leave it like, oh my gosh, now that people are noticing him, he's going to be working again. He did sit down and work with some screenwriters and stuff to kind of get like help them and stuff. It didn't really translate into money for him, is basically what I'm saying. So that was sad. And I understand why. It's like he was giving him the happy ending he didn't get in real life, and I think that's okay here, because this isn't trying to be like, this is kind of, I would kind of describe this movie as like your introductory to film for young kids to get them excited about it. You know what I mean? They're not technically lying at the end, but they lead you to believe more happiness happen. And the other major thing I noticed is they talked about how he had to sell his films to be melted down to some company to make money. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. It's even worse. So during World War One, one of his studio buildings that he still owned at the time before he had to sell everything off, was taken for use. I think is either as a hospital or something for the French army in World War One, and they confiscated all his films to melt them down and make stuff with them with the war either for the war effort, or I think they did make heels with it, but I don't think they were for just everyday people. Basically, even in the movie when it's technically his choice to sell them, even though it's not really, it's more tragic, I think, in real life, because he didn't have the choice. It was taken out from under him. His films were confiscated to melt down for the silver. So very sad. So like I said, the film does have a little bit of revisionist history at the end, but I'm okay with it because of what the intentions of the film are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it also, it's funny you say, like, you know, it's more tragic in real life. The whole time, at least with this recent viewing, when he's talking about, like, oh, I had to melt them down to put in the heels of shoes, I'm like, did you not keep your money from all the 500 films you produced? Like, at least in this movie. Obviously, in real life, like, it was, you know, a whole other thing. But I was just thinking for this movie, I was like, okay, so yes, the war happened and no one was interested in your movies. But clearly you must have made some money making those movies. So where'd that money go?
So that's also was omitted.
Yeah.
There was it's a lot. It's very complicated. I didn't have time to like do it.
Well, the film industry was different back then, and it was not what it is now. You did not make millions of dollars making movies. Oftentimes, your films would end up in like a Nickelodeon at a fair or something like that.
Well,
so
at one point he was working with his brother, and from what I understanding, there was either some bad financial decisions made or something that caused them to split up. He was kind of left without, is from what my understanding is, and I don't want to be like, I'm not a historian, I'm just trying to say they kind of left some stuff out. But his backstory was much more tragic than what they laid it in there. I just kind of want to let people know that. So because of that, he was kind of left without a lot of the money he had, and he made some bad financial investments, bad business decisions, and that kind of got him to where he was in the movie. And like I said, there's a lot that's left out. It's not necessary, but I just kind of wanted to put it here, and that kind of explains more of why he's at where he's at.
Gotcha. He made a few bad crypto investments, backed the wrong coins, got the rug pulled out from under him. It's happened to the best of us, buddy.
But no, his life was very, very sad, especially towards the end. And I think the fact that he got the praise and he wasn't looking for it, but the praise, attention he deserved this whole time, he finally got it again. But in real life, it didn't help him at all. I mean, he was eager to help young filmmakers and talk about their scripts and stuff like this, but it wasn't like he could live comfortably again. So very sad.
I will say it's at least nice because even today, like, even if you don't know who Georges Méliès is, like, that image of the moon with a rocket in its eye.
Yep.
So thankfully, a lot of his films have kind of survived. Actually, one of my favorite rock bands, the Smashing Pumpkins, their music video Tonight is very heavily based on that film, A Trip to the Moon.
And A Trip to the Moon, that scene you're talking about, is probably one of the most iconic just stills in film history, like at all. Everybody has seen that. Even if they're not a film scholar, you have seen that and you just don't even know like what you're looking at. And it's just the fact that it still has this far-reaching effect. You know, my hat is off to you, Mr. George. I'm just going to call you Georges because I'm tired of having to try to remember how to pronounce your last name. I can't do it. But Mr.
And
George,
that's why we're turning that image, and that is why we are turning that image into an NFT, folks. That's right. We're sending this one to the moon.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine how many of his
Moon
film
coin.
products could have been NFTs back then? And if he
That would have been the last thing he would have done to try and make money before officially being destitute. That would have been his last thing.
And then one last thing about his history is they said a reason why we have any sort of copies, like one of the major reasons, is because at the time they said his brother, who was running his stuff, I guess over here in the US or something, had to submit either an entire copy of the film or basically a frame by frame breakdown or something like that to the Library of Congress for copywriting purposes. And that is basically the only reason why we have a significant number of his films, nowhere close to all of them, but a chunk of them, is because we were able to restore a bunch of them from what was sent in for copyright. So always copyright your films, people. You never know when it's going to be helpful.
It's kind of like what we were talking about with Nosferatu a few months ago, where the only reason that survived was that a copy made it to America and then they, registered
the
it or
one
whatever.
place it wasn't registered. Before we give our final reviews, I want to talk about, and I feel like we're going to disagree here. So with this movie, I just gave a cliff notes of the two main awards shows and how like it was like celebrated. And like it was on all these, it was many critics' #1 film for that year. It was on all these lists. And if you think about it, this movie's pretty much been forgotten by a majority of the public. And so I kind of wonder, and this is just my speculation, and I kind of wonder if the reason why it was on so many people's lists and everything is it was basically, as we said, Hollywood loves talking about themselves. And it was a movie about movies. And everyone gets like super excited for these, and they usually end up having a niche audience. A lot of people end up seeing them, and then it's like hugely nominated at the awards. In my opinion, this is another one of these movies because as though I did think it was an enjoyable and very pleasant movie, and I really liked it, to me, it was a very okay movie. Like there was nothing except for the massive backstory we get on Georges Milieu. It's an okay movie. It's an interesting adventure film. It's enjoyable, but there's not much to write home about. And I kind of will disagree from what that producer said. I think that I don't think it's a masterpiece. I think it's a fun movie. I think it's an interesting movie, but I don't really think there's much more beyond what I've described it as a sort of an introductory for younger people to understand where, filmmaking got started and everything. What do you think?
Yeah, we're definitely going to disagree. So a couple things. One, I agree with you in the sense that Hollywood does love movies about movies. Like, it loves talking about itself. I think the reason it's not in the cultural consciousness as much is not so much because it's not as good as everyone said it was. It's because it bombed. If no one sees the movie, no one remembers the movie, no one shows the movie to other people. Sometimes it can get a second life, but generally, like, that's where the box office, can kill something. Like, some films that are still, like, highly regarded as masterpieces, you don't see people really like seeking out. Mm-hmm. And maybe you have like a movie buff friend who's like, oh man, you should see this, it's way underrated or whatever. I think about this movie a lot, even now. I was actually very excited you picked it. And I think critics and like movie people do still remember this. Again, it's just like the general population did not see this movie. So that is going to hurt it going forward, because it's not going to be like someone's favorite movie that they're showing off. It might be like, you know, one or two people or something. It's not going to have a lot of longevity for it. And for me, especially in today's age, what really hit home for me about the story wasn't so much like George or Hugo or anything, but something I'm always harping about on this show. It is film preservation. Mm-hmm. You can feel bad about Mr. Millier all you want, but the real tragedy is that 500 films went up in smoke.
Yeah.
And this is something that I'm banging on about all the time, because, like, again, if any of you like a movie, buy a physical copy.
Yep.
Because especially now, you know, the thing everyone's repeating over and over again on the internet now is you will own nothing and be happy. That's what they want. And it's true. You know, they want you to sign up for subscription services so that you pay absurd amounts of money every year just to make sure you have the movies on hand. And that can be useful. Obviously, not everyone has enough space in their home for all the movies that they have. But if you like a movie, if Hugo's your favorite movie, if Jaws is your favorite movie, if E.T., if The Matrix, if Gone with the Wind is your favorite movie, you should own a physical copy. And that's kind of the thing I think that was important at the time, but I think this movie has actually gotten more important,
like an unintentional lesson.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that was like a thing that people thought about back then, but it is genuinely like a danger now that like people, like movies very well might just disappear and no one will have anything to say about them because no one owns them anymore. They're just on the internet in the cloud somewhere. So that I think is like, if I were going to argue that this film is important, or like, you know, I do think some people might get more emotional over the orphan stuff and the Millier stuff. Like it is very sad, and I could see people reacting differently just subjectively based on their own background or anything like that. But that's the one point with this film I would argue is like not only aged well, but is like important. And at least for me, again, like rewatching this, I didn't really think there was anything you could trim. I thought the score was fantastic. The sets and costumes were amazing. Frankly, I'm like tempted to go back to it would have been the 2012 Oscars at this point and like see what was winning. You listed the awards. This one on Amazon, it was saying it won 5 Academy Awards. Was that right?
Yeah, so it won sound editing, art direction, cinematographer, sound mixing, and visual effects. But it was literally up for everything except the acting awards.
I think that's fair. It won because I was going to say sets, costumes, cinematography, and the sound and everything. Maybe Best Original Score is the only one that it was snubbed by. But yeah, again, I'd like to see what movies it was going up against, because I'm like blanking on 2011. I don't think it deserved Best Picture. I will say that. I know that there was probably something.
To me, the Best Picture nomination is kind of what pushed me a little bit to be like, is this, you know, well, it sounds bad, but is this really deserve praise? Because
this was after they added.
It is definitely a filmmaker's like wet dream of a movie.
Ever since they added, you know, they made it so it's 10 nominations, it feels like there's so many movies nominated for Best Picture ever since they made that change. I think it's a welcome change, but I think that's why Hugo was nominated for Best Picture. I don't think it was going to win. If it had won, I would have argued that it didn't deserve to win. But that's why, because when you go from 5 nominations to 10 nominations, that's where it's like, oh, this is a really good movie. Let's nominate it for Best Picture.
Okay, and this is the one I've always argued about, and you've disagreed with me on for years. This is the year that The Artist won Best Picture.
Oh.
And regardless of how you feel about the movie The Help was also up for Best Picture. I think The Help should have been the one to win Best Picture.
I like The Artist a lot. This is one where like I thought it was really cool when it happened, but you want to talk about films that are not in the cultural consciousness ever since. Like I think Hugo has a better chance than The Artist.
Yeah.
I think a lot more people think about Hugo than The Artist. And The Artist was a great movie. But yeah, that's another one. Yeah, The Help. It's an interest every year, man. It's one of those things that's always fun to go back to. But yeah, I really like this movie. I think it is definitely one of Scorsese's best films. Like, if I were going to make a list of his top 5, this would be in that top 5 for me personally. I don't know about everybody else.
When I was reading about this, people on Reddit were like, "Oh, I didn't even know that this was a Scorsese movie. I was shocked." And I was like, "Yeah, it's because it was good." I'm just kidding. Or not.
Ooh, yeah, no, it's well, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I like Martin Scorsese when he's not doing gangster movies. I understand why people like his gangster movies. They're fine and good, but every time he does something outside of that wheelhouse, he usually makes films that I find way more interesting. And this is a perfect example of that. It's like, essentially it's him doing a kid's movie, and he did a great job. So, like, if you put this down in front of a kid, I think Hugo crawling through the clocks and everything, like, it's very visually arresting, and I think that would kind of catch their eye. Like, even today, again, kids don't have like a really good attention span, but I think just the visual flair of everything going on and the fact that there's not a lot of dialogue. I actually, like, before you mentioned it earlier in this review, I didn't know you had ADHD, but I think that is kind of a real testament to this being a pretty engaging film for it to not, like, you not get distracted while watching it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I guess we're into that part of the review where we give our final scores. I'm just gonna come out and say, like, I don't give out perfect scores that often, but for what this is, it's a 4 out of 4 for me. Again, like, I can't really think of anything to fault it on. Obviously T has some issues with it, but, like,
of course,
this as I said, this is an example of one of Scorsese's best films in my opinion, and I'm sure that might actually, the film bros that we're always talking about, I feel like that would piss one of them off.
Probably.
I feel like the type of people that think Scorsese is the best filmmaker of all time probably don't like this movie.
Yeah.
Or think, like, it's good, but it's not, like, a real good showcase of what makes him a good director. So, like, the most annoying kind of, like, film fan probably wouldn't like this movie. Like, as you said, though, like, a lot of movie buffs, this ticks a lot of boxes, but that's just because it's really well made. Again, it was just kind of amazing watching it this time and, like, focusing on things that you're usually not paying attention to when you're just watching something for entertainment. And I was just blown away. Like, wow, there's, like, no dialogue, and, like, you could show this to someone who speaks a different language and they still understand what's going on.
Oh yeah.
And that to me is good filmmaking. Again, like, we've talked about, like, dialogue is important, but there is sort of an art form to being able to turn mute a movie, and if the person can still figure out what's going on just based on the filmmaking, that's good filmmaking. And I feel like this is a perfect example of that. So for me, it's one of the rare whiskey 4 out of 4s. But what about you?
So I'm going to go ahead and give it 3 out of 4 pitchers of sweet tea. It's a very enjoyable movie. I do like that it's a crash course on George's Milio. And I'm
We're going to have to make a t-shirt. If we ever do merch, we're going to do a t-shirt of all of the different ways you got his name wrong.
I know. I don't know why I can't get his name right. Let's just say George's. It's a great crash course on George's work and his contribution to the industry. And, the fact that I've told you that it was just very interesting, and it's very visually lush to watch. I will say there is an excessive amount of smoke in it. It's cool. Once I remembered it was 3D, the smoke makes a lot of sense to me. And the fact that when you watch some of the scenes, if you, like, go in knowing it was made for 3D, you can very easily see sort of like the foreground, middle ground, background setup of some of the non-super visually striking scenes. But that's not a fault of it, though. I did have some problems with some of the storyline, and I wish there had been more character development. I wish there had been more Hugo. And but I do think it does a great This is a movie, when people say a love letter to cinema, they say that about literally everything. This is one I actually can say is a sincere one. There's just so much work that went into trying to recraft some of these sets, like you talked about. This is obviously a reference to silent film, the way that these storylines are playing out, and that's amazing. So that's why I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 3 out of 4. Very enjoyable movie. But
I gotta say, also, this has one of the most stupendous train wrecks in a film. I saw that Amy Schumer film Trainwreck, and there wasn't a single train wreck in the whole film.
0 out of 10. That the person
0 out of 10.
That person who wrote that review for Silence of the Lambs, there was not a single lamb. 0 out of 10.
Where were the lambs? Also, there was a lot of talking. It wasn't a very silent film, so it wasn't silent. There was no lambs.
So
0.
No stars.
But what do you guys think, listening? And if you're tuning in, we apologize last episode for all of you on Spotify and Apple and everywhere missing out on us. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the over the years worth of stuff. I'm sure you're still catching up. We both have Letterboxd.
Yes.
And as of today, I finally posted a buttload of reviews. So we always do our end of the year show where we talk about all the films we saw for the year. If you want to know what I am thinking of films that I'm watching now, you can follow me on Letterboxd and see. And same with T.
Yes.
And we'll leave those in the description. If you're listening to this on YouTube Music, leave a comment, subscribe, like us.
Find out just how judgmental I can be.
Right? And same with all the other platforms. Like us, follow us, whatever their terms are on the other platforms. But thanks for joining us. I have been Whiskey.
I have been Sweet Tea.
Keeping it Kino.
And even though you made this movie and it's watchable, suck it, Scorsese.
Peace out, y'all.
Bye. Reels on the Rocks is a production of La Prince Laboratories. It is edited and produced by Alejandro Castillo and programmed by Jamie King. Original music is provided by Pat Mars and original artwork by Asa Esparza.